what we see as reality, whether it's our thinking or cognition, whether it's our emotions, whether it's our perception of the world, our behavior, our speech, our social interactions, our personal relationships, the forces of nature, and our biology and our ecosystem are a single process. You know, science has made a huge mistake by dividing things. We divided mind from the body, and then we spent years and years trying to think what's the connection. Then we divided human beings and organisms from the environment, and so we haven't experienced that I'm here and the environment is there, when in fact the trees are our lungs and the rivers and waters are our circulation and the air is our breath and the earth is recycling as our body. Why do we call it the environment? We have a personal body, we have a universal body, and they're equally ours. You can't live without the other, just as you can't live without your lungs. So this reductionist model that keeps dividing things, genes and epigenes, nature and nurture, organism and environment, people and society, nations, tribes, races, religions, it's coming home to roost now. The old model of commerce is done. The old model of commerce was a colonial model. Basically, it was exploitation. And it was what created the social injustice and the radical iniquities of the world. And that model has collapsed. That commerce is collapsing. We're watching it right now as we witness the collapse on Wall Street, and we witness the interdependence of economies, and we see what the derivatives have done to everyone's financial status. So the new commerce has to be a commerce that recognizes that artists, designers, and all of us who are in that field, that we can bring under the broad category of art and beauty and design, that all these serve to heal a very wounded planet. And I've always believed that the artist is the conscience of society. You know, that's why when you have totalitarian regimes and you have systems of autocracy, or theocracy, or any kind of system that invades and sabotages our well-being, then they go after the artists, because they know that the artist speaks to the human soul. It used to be said that the pen is mightier than the sword, but I would say art in all its forms. Because art is a commentary of what's happening in the deeper recesses of our own consciousness. And if you want to know what's happening in the world, what's happening in the society, what's happening in the civilization, what's happening in a country, then look at their art, look at their movies, look at the music they produce, look at the dance, look at the flavors of culture in the form of food and color and everything that arouses the senses. Everything. That's why this is a very sensual experience. But you see here, we have art from Africa, and we have African art in a contemporary setting, and we're seeing the merging of cultures right here. You go there, and you see Donna Karan's urban Zen, and it's bringing a higher consciousness, and the idea of well-being is the most important pursuit of humanity. Right now, if you ask futurologists, what's the number one thing that people are pursuing in the world? It's well-being, but well-being taken to a broad level: physical well-being, emotional, spiritual, environmental, community well-being, social well-being, all these different aspects of well-being that actually take us beyond our skin-encapsulated egos. So here's commerce that actually brings some kind of justice in the world. I see in the audience a friend of mine, Renata Black, who's sitting right here, who's got an organization called the 7 Bar Foundation. She does lingerie shows over the world, and then the proceeds from the lingerie shows go to microfinance women in developing countries, and she's financed over 2,500 businesses. Okay, I see Paulette with her ABC Foundation and how she's brought cultures from all over the world. This space that you see, it's a space that will constantly change. It's going to be like a carnival which brings together creativity, play, inspiration, insight, but brings the great themes of civilization and the interdependence that is emerging as a fact now. We can no longer tolerate a world where 50% of the world lives in abysmal conditions, and no longer tolerate a world, but that affects what happens in the world of social justice or violence or our own personal well-being. Our personal well-being is totally dependent on the well-being of people everywhere in the world, whether it's Pakistan or Afghanistan or Iran or Korea. These are not enemies, these are our family. The world is our family. And if we can come from that place, then we can see that the new emerging art, the new emerging commerce is going to actually be the means for social justice, be the means for the removal and eradication of poverty, be the means for our own personal well-being. And therefore, there is nothing that we can pay more attention to right now than to nurture the artistic impulse in us. Because through that art, we contact our spirit, which is the realm of insight, of intuition, of imagination, of creativity, of higher vision, and how we can bring art to heal the world. So I'm just thrilled to be part of this, and I asked Paulette's permission to tell you that we are actually going to create a carnival here called the Leela Carnival. That will be a carnival for the rest of the year. You can come here and play and create and imagine and help and nurture your own well-being, and in doing so, nurture the well-being of the planet. Because, you know, all the people here, you know, I'm wearing this shirt which is made by a friend called Jeremy Moon, and this is a friend of ours. And this is a biodegradable shirt, so when I'm done with it, I can plant it in the garden, and it could actually fertilize the rose garden. But when you look at the history of the shirt from New Zealand, when you look at the history of the shirt, you can actually track who the people were that were involved in the creation of this. The sheep, the farms, the people, the labor, the creativity from France, from China. This shirt is involving the whole planet right now. New York is a microcosm of our planet. I mean, you walk in New York, you visit every country, every culture, every tradition, every flavor. And right this evening, I'm seeing Lynn Meadows, you know, president of the Manhattan Theater, and one of the most creative, award-winning producers. I have friends here that created Barney. And I have friends from all over the world. You, thanks for being here. Thank you for coming this evening. And we have people from Fox Television, all, you know, in one place. Alexander from the Visual MD. I mean, I could go on looking in this room. My yoga teacher, my wonderful volunteers from Gallup and elsewhere. It's just amazing what we can do right here in this space. And let us now think that, you know, commerce, design, beauty. Tagore said, a great Indian poet, he said, when I see beauty, I know it as truth. There was a time in the history of civilization when we were part of the universe, when we were part of nature, so our art reflected that. And then we got away from that in the post-industrial age, and the art became about human anguish and human suffering, and also all, you know, the existential problems we have. Art is always reflecting the deeper yearnings of our soul. So if you remember that, then we also see now that we are transcending national boundaries, racial boundaries, ethnic boundaries, religious boundaries. We want to live in a world that brings beauty, commerce, and design together.